Okay, it started. Well, thank you
Sure,
so much for joining us. Before I start with all of the questions, I have a few general ones. First of all, what
sure.
is your name?
My name is Paul Vine,
Yes, where are you from?
Vine. England, London.
Yeah. And what is your profession?
I'm a teacher. You both know that. And a
For the
researcher. And actually,
audience.
well, actually, I've summarized. So I'm a qualified solicitor, England and Wales. I'm still a solicitor, and but my main profession these days is teaching at a Hoka school, and I also do. Up until recently, I was a researcher here in the multi-level regulation lecturate. That's my full profession. Plus, father of two children, which is actually the hardest thing I do.
The first question I have is, how do you
Yeah,
personally define integrity in a professional context?
yeah, sure. So there's the kind of classic definition, and it has different elements, doesn't it? So for me, it's a combination of honesty, uh, 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 and a reflective element. Have I thought about what integrity is or what it means to me? Um, and some level of standards, some values, some ethics, some standards. That's for me what the core is, and in there's this kind of, it's hard for an organization to deliver, but for an individual, there's also a kind of, I hate these jingoistic words, but authenticity. Is this real? Is this real? A genuineness. So I'm honest in my dealings, reflected about what that means. It's real. It's not just marketing. And there are some set things which are right and wrong, ethics, values. You can call them different things.
Thank you. And what role does leadership play in cultivating a culture of integrity?
In theory, a leadership, you mean the directors or the
Yeah.
heads of teams, or
Yeah.
yeah. In theory, a lot. In theory, tone from the top, or even tone from the middle, is massive. If colleagues or stakeholders see someone in a leadership role saying one thing and doing another, it's a disaster. It entirely undermines things. The question mark I have about that is, how real is that? How realistic is that? In reality, how risky is that to implement? If you imagine, let's pick the board of directors of a large organization, or the equivalent kind of group. Tone from the top for integrity. Tone from the top for sustainability. Tone from the top is necessary for cybersecurity. Tone from the top is necessary for strategy and financial performance. Let's assume they're humans with partners and children. And once you get that old, you also have aging parents. How much is real? How much bandwidth do they really have to create a culture that's authentic? So that's the point, that they reflect. For me, the standards are tricky in an international world because different cultures and different organizations have different ideas of right and wrong. But reflecting on it and being authentic, this is really me. How much time do you have? How much honest time do you have to execute the theory, which is lead kind of authenticity? Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yes,
They
yes.
can't do all. I don't believe they can do. Well, I'm a team leader and a teacher. I can't do all the things for all the colleagues in my team, and therefore we have to prioritize. So there's a drawback in the theoretical answer.
And
Are my answers okay, or quite
yes.
rambly, or about
No, they're
useful
perfect.
for
They're
the group?
perfect.
Perfect. You
Perfect.
get like
Yeah.
a 10. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and it's really good that you mentioned culture and how it has like different standards of authenticity,
Yep.
because that's the whole topic of the week, is to
Yeah.
open discussion about that. How do you go about the culture differences and how do you
Yeah.
work in a team? So it's really
Yeah.
important.
Good.
My next question is, what are the biggest challenges in maintaining integrity across teams?
And across teams in is a very general question. Does that include? So yeah. So teams are. What do you mean by teams? Just to be clear, because I have an answer,
Just
but
in your field of of
well,
team.
let me think of examples. So the main what a team does generally is you want to build people who work together and in the end become high performing in what they do. The big, and this is nothing to do with integrity, it's to do with strategy and operational management, right? And human resources. The tension between creating a high performing team that feels really close together is you create silos, okay? Silos of performance, because this team, study groups, right? Your group becomes close, or maybe not, but you don't do something so much with the other group or the other tutor group. It just doesn't happen like that. What that means from an integrity point of view, but from any cultural management point of view, is can you be sure that we have the same standards? So if I spend X% of my day with a small group of people and perform, then the real challenge is to make sure that there's a standard across them. And that is, so in my previous life when I was practicing, you're also talking international teams, it is almost impossible. And the solution you have to that is not to try and impose, in my view, not to try and impose answers, you must behave like this, it doesn't work. But to have a process where everyone feels like they're being taken seriously, that also isn't a process. So a real process where people feel that they're taken seriously. So the challenge is, how do you have, again, tying to my previous comment on Tone from the Top, how the leadership management have the time to be aware of this, to give people the chance to understand that we're different and to start reflecting on what good and bad is and what ethical behaviors and integrity means, but yet without doing a top-down, you must act like this. That's the main challenge. And therefore, what you would classically have in a big organization, a sales team and a legal team. Yeah. And the sales team just want to sell stuff, and the legal team just want to make sure they don't sell stuff. So that tension exists, and that's the main challenge. How do you deal with that? What is right or wrong?
Yes, thank you. Those were all of my questions. And now
Good,
India
thank you, Paul. Now shut up.
No,
No, no,
never.
no. We have more
Never.
questions.
I have following questions. My question would be, how have you ever heard of the concept whistleblower, and can you explain what it is?
Yeah, I'm a lawyer. Yes. Yes, the answer is. I don't teach it anymore, but I mean, in very simple terms, if I was going to explain it to undergraduate law students, it's a person in an organization, classically in the EU, who reports a wrongdoing. That can be crime or alleged crime, or feeling unsafe or inappropriate behavior. And that's what a whistleblower is. And they can report that internally. Most are reported through some internal system. That's the data you see around the world. If you've got a legislation that enables protection for whistleblowers, or some regulatory mechanics, they can also report to an agency that's appointed for that purpose.
Well, following that question,
how did I do? That's easily a 7 as an answer,
Yeah.
but possibly higher.
My next question will be connected to the first question.
Ooh,
yeah. And it's more like, how does a culture of integrity contribute to long-term organizational success?
That's a weighted question. Maybe it doesn't. It's a working assumption. So one of the interesting comments I have on this week is, it's a working assumption that it's a good thing. That's an interesting question. If you go back to my so first of all, I do believe that a culture of integrity leads to success. I do believe that. It's not just a management or a legal governance comment. But if you go back to my original idea, what I think integrity is, the honesty and reflection and and authenticity are the most important parts of it. So the fact that you have a conscious organization who is making conscious decisions, I think is more important than an organization that value signals and says we're green or we're ethical or anything like that. I loathe that when it's not true. So it's more important that they're honest in the simple human word and have thought about it. And so, for example, I used to work for Russian bankers. They were about making money in a very rough way. I didn't agree with all they did, but I prefer their honesty, and so you know where you stand with them. I'm not into breaking laws or hurting people. I mean, obviously there are limits, but I prefer that honesty than someone says, we are green, we are here for long-term partnerships, we believe in good compliance, but actually don't practice what they preach. So for me, the self-reflection, authenticity is a key, and it's a kind of standard. I mean, that is one of the bases of long-term success. What happens then is that, and this is the supposed benefit of acting with integrity, is that you build better relationships with counterparties. It's not necessary that you build relationships that are the way they become your friend, but the person can trust you because they see what you're telling. They see what you're saying is real. That's the main benefit.
And my last question would be, how do you measure the effectiveness of your integrity initiatives?
Well, I don't. I was a practicing lawyer, and now I'm an educationalist. So I don't run any integrity initiatives. Are you asking for my independent view on it, or is there another question? Because I don't run integrity initiatives.
As your independent view.
Yeah. It's very hard. It's very hard. I think the most important thing for me would be that leadership, let's call it the board, but anybody, really did believe that acting with integrity is one of their strategic priorities. That will be, because that will filter down throughout the whole system. If that's true and not just a sales pitch like greenwashing, then I think that's one measure. And secondly, you have to have qualitative feedback and qualitative feedback. So asking the employees if they feel heard, if what we're doing is authentic, or if what we're doing is fake for marketing reasons. I think that employees versus stakeholders' views on authenticity will be the other way I would measure it, because measuring outcomes like a rise in sales or views on whether we have a value statement, global value statement, is all blah blah blah. I'm a lawyer. I can make that say anything I want it to say. But if you really test the voices of people, and you get all the voices, not just the people who like to speak, and they'll tell you whether the program's working or not. I think that will be it.
Perfect. That is all for my questions.
Okay.
Iriani, if you have any last remarks?
No, just thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Okay, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.